Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Open Book Entrepreneur. I'm thrilled to have Christoph here with us, all the way from San Francisco Bay Area, and he's an entrepreneur and also helping business owners grow and get more time. So, Christoph, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Oh, yes. Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Tony. I appreciate being here. My name is Christoph Nauer. I'm originally from Switzerland, but have lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 35 years. I have three grown kids, and my passion is to help business owners get that time back so that they can have a life outside of their business, having a successful business and a happy, fulfilling home life. That's the purpose of my life, and that's the purpose of my business. And it's also kind of summarized in my book, From No Time to Free Time, available on Amazon, of course.
Great. And what does it mean from no time to free time?
Well, like we talked a little bit earlier before the recording, Tony, is business owners are prone to working insane hours, especially here in the US. 70-hour weeks is very common. We're currently working with a client, he works sometimes till 8 o'clock at night or later, and he has a wonderful girlfriend at home. And so I said, I think your girlfriend's probably going to be upset if she never sees you. And so we're working on cutting his work hours back so he can leave the office more around 5 or 5:30 instead of late at night. Not working on weekends, for instance, or whatever. As a business owner, you can decide if you want to take off Monday or Tuesday or the weekend. It's totally up to you. But this 7 days a week of work week and with late hours, sometimes he starts the crack of dawn in the morning. That's not sustainable, and it affects your health and it affects your relationship with others.
Totally. And are we talking only like sort of having more free time if you're working about 80, 70, 80 hours a week, or this is applicable to anyone who wants to actually get more time uh, with their families or for some other reason?
Yes, if you implement some of the things that I'm talking about in my book and that I'm talking about with my clients, yes, you get more done in less time. It's all about planning, time blocking, and sticking to a schedule, having a plan, being proactive versus being reactive.
So, what's one of the major tips that you can share with our audience if they're sort of struggling to get free time from their business?
Well, there's a five-step process, that I teach my clients, and it starts with the famous to-do list. Uh, Everybody has heard of that. Well, very few people use it, and the to-do list is not in your head. It's written down, whether that's in a document on your computer, pen and paper, it doesn't matter. Once you create that, then you have to prioritize it, because we always put too much stuff on it. I was trained by Brian Tracy as a time management master. Most people have heard of him. He's very renowned in that regard. He just uses a simple method he calls A, B, C, D, E. So I start with the E, which stands for eliminate. So see what you can eliminate from that list that you just created. Next, the D, you can imagine, stands for delegate. What is it that's on your list that could be done by somebody else? And yes, that's very hard for a lot of people. So who do you have employees? If you don't have employees, who do you know who's a 1099 contractor that specializes in this particular area of work, whether that's website updating, social media planning, bookkeeping, you name it, admin work, whatever. There's help out there. So what is it that you can delegate? That means by then your list should be much shorter. And then we jump to A. And A are the tasks that if you don't do them, they have a significant bad consequence on your business and on your health and on your relationship with others. So these are the critical tasks that you got to get done. B,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
Yeah, and so basically the book is available on Amazon, and yeah, anyone can check it there for sure. And then on top of that, like, what are the typical results your clients are getting when they're working with you?
Well, they stop working 80 hours a week, you know. We together sometimes we spend our time together to create a plan. So let's see, what does your week next week look like for you? What are you doing on Monday? When you first get up on Monday, what do you do? Then what do you do next? Next, so that we lay out the entire day, and then Tuesday, what do you do on Tuesday? And so by the time they're done, they actually have a plan that they can implement. That's critically important. They have a schedule that to follow, but you got to follow it.
That's the challenge. I see a lot of entrepreneurs are actually struggling, even if they go past the first step, which is like making the plan. The next issue is for most of those, like either following it or not dealing with burning issues, but following the actual strategic plan that you developed. Like, so how do you help people with that?
Well, so when we have our calls that can be either weekly or every other week, then we go over that. So did you do what we discussed in our last session? And quite often they didn't. Then I ask why, what happened? And they tell me. So for instance, they do things that they're not supposed to be doing. They answer the phone instead of working on what they were supposed to be working on. They're checking emails all the time instead of having set times to check emails. So things like that. If they have a gatekeeper, they have to teach the admin person to answer the phone. They have to let that person know, I'm not available. So, in order for your job is to keep me from getting interrupted. Interruptions are some of the most biggest time wasters there is. So if you're working on something, a project for a client that is due tomorrow, the day after, and you're interrupted by phone or email, that means you have to then, when you're done with that interruption, refocus. And that takes time. You're in the groove, you're doing things, and boom, something comes up and stops you. And so if you have a job that gets interrupted, it takes up to 7 times longer to complete it instead of having it done without interruptions. That's why one of the golden nuggets that I'd love your listeners to take away with is the 90-15-90. What that means is basically for 90 minutes, you work on one top priority item on your calendar. No interruptions, no nothing. Everything else is shut down. Then you take a 15-minute break and then you do it again. If you implement that, if you just do that once a week, your productivity skyrockets.
Fantastic. Once a week.
Well, ideally you do it more often, but if you never done it before ever, it's not realistic to do this more often. So just say, let's say every Wednesday I'm going to try that, and then see what it does for you. Because a big part of it is we got into something, doing something a certain way. Now we have to unlearn that because it's not conducive to our business and our lives. So you have to let go and say, okay, no, this is not good. So you have to learn something new. And that takes time and it takes discipline. And people don't like that word, but that's what it boils down to. But so
Definitely.
yeah,
But what are some of the results people are getting once they start implementing this?
so one client, for instance, she had no office hours. Okay. She was always on. And so after working with me for a while and after pushing back, she implemented office hours, clearly letting her clients know when she was available and when she was not available. All of a sudden, she actually had time when she was not working. Before that, she was always working, either sometimes, attached to this thing, she may be physically home, but mentally she was somewhere else. So she clearly implemented that. And so then there's times when she just did not work. So that's a big component to decide when you work and when you don't work, and then stick with that. That's a huge component. So like I said earlier, the client who stays till 8 o'clock or whatever, cutting back on that incrementally. It doesn't, if he works to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, for me to say you got to stop at 5 is not realistic. But let's say the first week or the first month, we say, okay, go home at 8 instead of 9. And then the next month, we go to 7 instead of 8, and so forth. Take slow steps towards the ultimate goal. And so those are some examples that I can tell you that. So eventually what they do is they work fewer hours, but they still get the stuff done that they have to get done.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, excellent. And then also, one of the questions for you personally, like in your business, because this open book entrepreneur, when you are like struggling with something or have some challenges or issues in your own business, like how do you manage that?
The I always like to use the analogy of athletes. You know, great athletes have coaches. They don't get to where they are today on their own. It's the same with the business owner. You don't get to where you are or where you want to go on your own. You have to surround yourself with experts. So, like we talked about the whole idea of delegating, you got to know who out there can do things that I'm not good at. So, um, my website, I don't know how to maintain that and update and keep it, you know, posting blog. I don't know that. I know somebody who does. Social media, I'm not a social media expert. I don't know how that stuff works, but somebody else does. Bookkeeping, taxes, no clue. Well, I got myself a CPA and a bookkeeper taking care of that. Yeah. So that's the stuff I'm talking about. And sometimes people think, oh, I can do it fast. I can, no. Let's look at how much does it cost you to do that yourself? First of all, you're not an expert. That means it takes you longer. Secondly, you're probably going to make mistakes. And let's say you as the business owner, your hourly rate is $200 an hour. Well, you can hire a bookkeeper for $25 an hour. So by doing so, you actually save time and money. And so that's the way that the entrepreneurs and business owners have to look at what they're doing. You're the business owner. As such, your time is the most precious and most valuable. So you should use it for something that only you can do and nobody else.
Totally. And if someone wants to actually find out more about you or connect to you, how they can do that?
They could go to my website, balance6.biz. So the word balance, you can see right here. Word balance, the number 6, and dot biz, B-I-Z. And there's, free resources there that, they can have their short videos there. They can book an appointment with me. They can learn more about me. There's this 3-minute video that talks exactly about what it is I do. So that's the best place for folks to land. And of course, if they want to, they can also get the book on Amazon.
Wonderful. That's great. Okay. Thank you so much, Christoph, for being a guest today. Thank you all for watching and listening to this episode. If you liked it, drop us a like and subscribe. Share it with your friends and family. It's going to help us a lot. And then on top of that, see you all in the next episode. All the best and bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Tony.